Back, and joining me now is Congressman Steve Cohen, Democrat from Tennessee, and Jamil Jaffer, ACLU Deputy Legal Director of the Center for Democracy, which houses the organization's National Security Project. All right, that 60 Minutes, I watched people's reaction in real time to the 60 Minutes episode, which I did not watch when it aired. I watched it today. It was worse than I could have imagined in how one-sided it was. It was essentially a 30-minute video press release.
I had the same reaction. I thought it was awful. It was so credulous and essentially allowed the NSA to put out a series of misrepresentations about its own activities, and then to slander Edward Snowden as well without allowing him any response. I thought it was pretty bad.
There was a point at which one of the people in the NSA talks about Edward Snowden, alleges that he stole some answer key for a test he was taking in the NSA. And I just had the thought, you know, when I was 22 or 23, first writing as a freelance writer, someone makes a novel accusation about someone like that, you have to go get a response. I mean, you just can't just print that. I mean, and this is like, you know, little city council feuds I would cover in Chicago. At 22 or 23, I couldn't believe they just went to air and there was nothing.
Well, and they let all the NSA officials spout all of these misrepresentations about the programs, including statements that were clearly inconsistent with information already in the public record. So
to me, a lot of what it signals is the NSA has now decided they need to go on a PR offensive because they recognize that change is coming, right? I mean, do you feel that on Capitol Hill, that we're turning a corner where there's got to be some kind of legislative response to this?
There'll be legislative response. Whether it's going to be meaningful is hard to say. You've got to get it through committee. And Speaker Boehner did a big turnaround in getting a budget bill passed and telling some of the crazy right-wingers, you know, back off, I'm the speaker. But that doesn't mean he's going to necessarily stand up on NSA issues where most of the people that are concerned are more liberal. And I think, you know, I like Mike Rogers a lot, and I like Dutch Ruppersberger a lot, but I don't know.
Those are people on the Intelligence Committee.
They're the ranking member and the chairperson, and I don't think that they or Boehner are going to allow a vote to come up in the House. The Amash Conyers bill got a lot of votes. We talked about that. But then they kind of made sure that it didn't pass, I think. They had enough votes they could keep, and the Senate never touched it. The relief will probably come from the judiciary, as it often does in this nation, and that's probably why the Republicans were so angry about the nuclear option, because it's judges that make the difference in people's rights. That's what happened in the 60s, and this was happened throughout our history, and so now the judicial branch will be the one that saves us.
Well, and that perfectly tees up today's judicial decision by a federal judge who is not just a George W. Bush appointee, a longtime Republican operative, essentially worked in Republican committee staff on the Hill, was doing stuff on sort of quashing Iran-Contra investigation. I mean, he was a very controversial pick when he was picked, was seen by Democrats as, you know, as a stalwart, you know, right-winger, and the decision today is pretty remarkable.
It is, but you know, Republicans care about the Fourth Amendment too, right? There are 130 co-sponsors of the USA Freedom Act, which is a bill that would reform a lot of these programs,
including Representative Sensenbrenner, who of course was the co-author on the Patriot Act.
That's right. He wrote the provision that the government is relying on to conduct this kind of surveillance. But today's decision, I mean, I think it's true that at the end of the day we have to rely on judges, and today's decision, I think, is a great thing. I hope it's the first of many. There are a number of other cases pending, including one that the ACLU brought here in New York, challenges to the same program or to other NSA programs. And it's in some ways the most remarkable outcome of the Snowden disclosures is that we can finally have these cases go forward in court. You can litigate them on the merits.
How did the Snowden disclosures change what could and could not be litigated?
Well, before the Snowden disclosures, we were in court arguing that these programs were unconstitutional, or that the laws were unconstitutional. And the government's response was always, you don't have standing because you can't show that your plaintiffs were monitored, or you can't litigate this case because litigation would require the disclosure of state secrets. So there are all of these threshold doctrines, all of these hurdles that litigants have to overcome in order to even argue about the merits. And we couldn't get to that point, but now we can.
So there's a legislative aspect to this. There's Senator Ron Wyden has been pushing for reform, legislative reform on the Senate side. There's some stuff bubbling up in the House.
I have a bill in the House too.
You have a bill in the House as well. There's judicial. There's also executive branch. The president has appointed this panel, right? This outside panel that he's asked for recommendations. The panel said to urge NSA curbs. We've seen some reporting on it. Are you expecting anything out of that panel? Are you expecting anything meaningful initiated by the White House itself in response?
I think the White House will. I think Barack Obama knows politically he needs to. Probably he knows as a lawyer and a human being that something needs to be done. On the other hand, he gets access to all that material, and sometimes the presidency, just like the chairman and the ranking members of the committees, kind of get taken over by the establishment. Maybe it's because they hear the data
right.
and the information, and they think we've got to do this for the country, and maybe they've been snowdened. I don't know which. But it happens, and I don't know, the committee could go to their committee, could go to Goodlatte's committee, my committee, Judiciary, and I don't think Chairman Goodlatte will give it a hearing either. So you got a problem getting a hearing.
I think what we saw today was that this judicial decision, now that the standing issue has been overcome, I think we're going to see a lot more decisions like this. Congressman Steve Cohen and Jamil Jaffer from the ACLU, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That is all in for this evening. The Rachel Maddow Show starts right now.